All right, here we go today. I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. I know that I did. It was such beautiful weather up here in Muskoka. It was just absolutely incredible. And I hope that it was lovely weather wherever you were. There were so many events going on. It was so neat to see everybody out, and the colors up here are just absolutely fantastic. And so it was just a really, really nice weekend to unwind and go around and see all the different businesses actually in the Muskoka area, because it was the studio tour. And so a lot of the local artists and different amazing craftsmen were showing their wares, and I always enjoy that so much. I go every single year, and I just love seeing the creativity and things that different people provide. It was really cool, actually, because everybody that I went to this weekend happened to be female. I didn't put in any of the male artists in my tour, which is really weird. I've never done that before, but it just so turned out that everybody was female, and it was just such a lovely day. It was absolutely amazing. All right, so I hope that you guys were able to complete your homework, and you got, you have some really, really great ideas going, and you've got a handle on the information that we worked on before, specifically with the all of the questions to create the business model. I really, really hope that everything's working. And so now we're going to move on to we're going to continue with the business validation that we were talking about before, because we don't want to, we need to keep going. There's so many more questions and things that you need to think about. Is anyone here that can hear me? I can hear somebody.
Oh no, can you hear me?
I can.
Oh.
And that's just fine. How are you?
12 event planners with Resorts of Ontario to tour 24 site visits in 4 days.
Wow.
Yeah, so
that
I'm
is wild.
but I'm here.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for coming. It actually won't be super long today, so that you can go on and do the 8 billion things that you're doing.
That's okay. I've got an hour drive ahead of me, and I intend on filling it with your voice. So
that's perfect. Oh, I'm so glad. That's great. Awesome. All right. How did you find the work that you've done so far?
It's interesting, actually, to be able to go back and having everyone told me what you told me in the beginning, and once you start growing, or once the train starts going, it's very hard to stop it and move backwards.
Yes.
So listening to you again, I thought this is probably the problem that I'm having, and that I have holes in my foundation. And so it's actually good because it's forcing me to go back, but it's also having had just a couple of years sort of seeing what the clients are like and stuff like that, and how little I sleep. It's actually, I think, going to be the solution going forward, is to realize I think I underestimated how important that business plan or that business model, and also the goals, the life goals and stuff. So
that's
whoever
awesome.
told you that being your own boss was freeing, it is in a way, but it's not in many others.
No, it's so funny because when you, especially like I've noticed when you go from having your own business and doing it every day and then going into a regular job, it's like regular jobs are just so freeing, because it's like, wow, when I close the door and go home, I don't have to think about anything.
Yes. Yeah, and you know what? And that's one of those things, I think, questions that we have to look at, because I thought about that.
Yes.
And I don't think I could go back and work
for
someone else.
No,
and so it's interesting that that's my decision at the end of it, but I realize, so there's got to be a way. If that's the case and I'm crazy, then I have to figure out how to do it. And that business plan is actually the way to do it. If you, it'll change and it's fluid, but you need to have it. Otherwise, you're going and you're lost. And then once that train starts going, it's hard to stop.
Exactly. I completely agree with you. And once I found definitely that it's funny because I'm working here, but I'm also still running my businesses because I can't stop. I can't fully go to, I can't do it. Yeah. All of my free time is spent, worrying about my businesses still, which is, I don't mind that at all, because it's just part of life, It becomes such a, every single spare moment that you have in your brain, not filling it with your business is kind of strange.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to keep going then with everything that we need to cover today. I inserted some video into this actual slideshow, but what I'm going to do instead is send you the links to the video so that you can watch it later.
Okay.
Because that just makes more sense, because then you can watch it in your own time and focus on it.
Yep.
And so we're just going to start flying, and we'll see how far we go. So the main thing that we're trying to create here is all of this information is going to go into a business plan, and preferably a pretty decent sized business plan. So I prefer one page, but the maximum business plan that I would ever have suggest that anybody create is up to 20 pages. Beyond that, it just becomes silly and crazy. And so what we're working toward is just really, really funneling down all of your information and all of your ideas and all of the things that we're doing here into really, really succinct ideas and concepts to put into the smallest size business plan you can possibly create. And so one of the steps that you can use to start with, to then put into your business plan, is a business model canvas. And what a business model canvas is basically like a big poster board of all of the different aspects of your business. And it's what we were covering in all of the questions before. And the reason to make this canvas is because then you can transfer it all to your business plan, and it makes it all really, really simple to plug in what you've already researched and looked for, and then you can just convert it over to your actual one-page plan, and it makes it so super easy. So what I have here, and I'll be sending it to you, is it was a video. It's a video of a guy explaining how to create your business model canvas, and you already have all of the answers to go into that canvas, and which you might even not think you have, but you do. And so as a first step, you want to create your business model canvas and then move on from there. So I'm just going to skip past the video, but it's probably going to be a hard time. Okay, there we go. So in terms of our validation steps, we completed validation step 2, which was the creation of this business model. And so now we move on to the third step in business validation, and that's figuring out what your position is in the value chain. Now, some people, I'm going to explain what the value chain is. A value chain is along the way when you are, let's say you are offering television sets. I have this example here. Let's say Best Buy. We have Best Buy. They order the television sets from the manufacturer. It comes into the Canadian distributor. It's distributed out to the big box store, and then we go and buy it, and they try and sell us a warranty. Actually, no. Best Buy is good without that. And then we go home and we plant it on our wall, and that's great. One of the things that Best Buy has done to make things really, really easy on its customer is it's created a situation where it's more like it's your own television shop. It comes from the manufacturer to the distributor to the retail establishment, and then they offer home delivery, and they offer setup where a guy comes into your house and makes it perfect, and they also offer up to a 5-year warranty, which you can purchase, that makes sure that, if it falls off your wall because a train goes by, they will come and replace your television, and everything will be fine. And that's a value that they add to the chain up through which the product travels. And everyone has a value chain in their business, whether it's a service business or it's a product business. And it's really, really important to look at your value chain to see how your value chain is different from your competitors. So let's just say that you're providing a service, and your competitor who's right beside you is providing the same service. In the value chain of what your service provides, what do you offer that's different? Because differences are what sell your product. Differences are what people look for. And so in terms of evaluating your actual business, finding where you are in the value chain and how you can improve the value chain, that's what you want to be looking for. You want to be looking at differences. So ways to figure this out. If you look at your distribution channel that you had looked at from the part 1 of just like last class, I believe it was. If you look at the distribution channel, you can sometimes see where you can add value to your products or services. For example, if you were bringing in, well, I'm thinking of even for wedding stuff, if you're bringing in certain products, but then you teach people how to use it, stuff just as simple as that. It can be little things, or you're the one who actually, crafts everything that they're bringing in. You're the one who does the all of the invitations and stuff like that, so that people don't have to do that tedious task, which is brutal. I remember it from when I got married. And just little things where you can add value to that chain. It's important to investigate all the ways that you could do that, because it's what sets you apart. So in your workbook that you've been working on all your homework in, try and describe how you can add value to the chain. And you can always add to that, but it's really, really good to really investigate and explore that. Validation step 4 is calculating the customer value. And what that means is when you're developing the business model, it's really, really important to estimate the value of the tangible assets and the tangible benefits that your customers will receive through purchasing your product or your service. So what a tangible benefit is something that they are truly getting, deriving, that they're getting from the use of your product. So, for example, you could say, they are getting the stress-free experience of using my service over using somebody else's. They are, if they're buying televisions, they are now able to connect with the world. They can feel more included in pop culture, and it's something that's going to be important to them, and they're going to be able to socialize with their friends more, because when they're asked about whether they've seen Mad Men, they're going to be able to say yes. Simple things like that. And so when you're looking at the actual value of what you're providing now, that's the way that you can decide whether you want to add more things that they could derive value from in your product and the benefits that they can receive. But unless you investigate, like we said before, unless you investigate what you're already offering, you can't actually move forward and offer something else. Validation step 5 are your revenue sources and your cost drivers. This one is huge. So when you're thinking about where your money comes from, all of the ways that you can derive revenue in your business. You can derive revenue through your actual product or services that you're offering. You can derive things through, if you look at some websites today, you'll see how everybody's offering workbooks or, special reports that cover, the essential things that you need to know about X, and people will pay, $10 or $5 here and there for these little reports. That's just the business trying to create an extra revenue source to bring in money. Ideally, in your business, you would not only be taking your revenue in from one source. You would be creating a large basket of revenue sources so that if one isn't working as strongly as you'd like it to be, you have other revenue sources that are padding your income in the meantime. So, for example, there's many examples, but I'm going to use mine. So, in my business, what I do is I am a birth doula. I also offer postpartum services. I offer childbirth education. I offer hypnobirthing classes, breastfeeding consultations, birthing gowns, placenta encapsulation, birth plan preparation, doula business training, and website coaching for business professionals. So it's like all sorts of stuff. But do you think I started out that way? No. What I started out with was basic, just birth doula services. And then once I started working with my clients and attending a few births, they were like, oh, do you offer postpartum services? And I was like, oh, geez, I better add that to my business model, because now I have an extra source of revenue coming in, which is great. And then they'd say, oh, do you offer any education? I'm like, heck yeah, of course I'll offer education. So I started offering my classes. And then when I went to actually hypnobirth and saw it, I'm like, man, I've got to start teaching those classes. And then you get around moms enough and you're dealing with breastfeeding issues that you can start offering consultation on that because you've dealt with it so many times, and et cetera, and so on and so forth. And so what I find is that even now, because currently I'm not attending births in my practice, I still have all of those other revenue sources that are still coming in, even though I'm working full-time. And so it's pretty crazy to think that I have all of these revenue sources coming in, but I do. And I've made, I mean, it's been like a 10-year process of creating all of these revenue sources, but I didn't think that that was something that I should be doing in the first place. I hadn't even considered it because I really didn't know my industry very well. But now, if you look at, when I'm training my baby doulas, as I call them, who are coming into the world, I say to them, you know what, you need to have your basket. You need to have a large basket of services that you offer so that people don't have to go anywhere else. Because I think that's one of the keys too. Because the moment that people go somewhere else, you can lose them as customers. So when you're offering all sorts of things in your business, make sure that you offer a full basket of revenue sources and you explore what you already offer. Because you might find that you're offering a bunch of stuff that you're not even charging for, which is a big key. A lot of times in my profession, when I was doing the doula work, I was going in and providing childbirth education, but I wasn't charging for it. But I hadn't even thought that that's what I was offering. I hadn't even considered it. And then I was like, wait, I need to be charging extra for this. This needs to become another revenue source. And then I can even remove it from the actual doula birth process. I don't know if everybody knows what a doula is, but it's somebody who attends a birth with a mom. And so I can remove the actual childbirth education process from that whole thing and charge for it separately. And so you might have something that you could be doing that's just like that. And it's fun and interesting to explore because then you realize, heck yeah, I could be charging for something that would take me way less time than dealing with an entire package. And, and it's a lot of fun and it gets your name out there. And so that's the purpose for exploring your revenues and cost drivers. So different cost driver or different revenue sources create cost drivers. So cost drivers are what create and drive costs that you need to pay out on a daily basis for your business. So again, using my example from my personal business, and this is just a small list of costs, I have my costs of certification, I have my costs of domain registration and hosting for all of my sites, my website maintenance, my space rentals for my classes, my business cards and any promotion I'm wanting to do, my travel, equipment, food, networking, because I go to a lot of functions to meet people. I have different memberships that I need to maintain. There's conferences, basic marketing things that I'm trying to accomplish, my customer relationship management, my follow-up marketing. And then in terms of my gown sales, the actual per unit gown cost, including the shipping of that, that's a ton of cost drivers, and there are more. On this list, I didn't even include my cell phone and all sorts of different ways that I actually make contact with my clients. And I didn't even add my own time, but I don't consider my hourly rate because I work for myself. I don't use myself as a cost driver. But what does drive the cost up is if I had an employee and I was using that employee more and more, that would drive cost. So that's just an example, and it's really, really important to have a detailed list of all of your cost drivers as well, because if I wasn't able to look at my list and say, you know what, my domain registration is a ridiculous price, I'm going to see if I can get a different price in that to bring all of my, the basket of cost drivers I have to a lower rate. It's just, if I didn't have the list, I might not even think about it. For example, my conferences. I might decide, you know what, I really only have time to attend one this year. I'm not going to go to the normal 4 that I'm supposed to because it's just, I don't need it. But I'm bleeding all of this money. And, some years are better than others in most people's professions or in even business in general. You have a bad year where the economy isn't doing as well and people just they're not spending as much. And so without knowing where you are sending your money out the door, it's really, really hard to identify where you can make change. And I'm such a huge proponent of knowing every detail of what you're bringing in and sending out, because without that knowledge, you're kind of just flying by the seat of your pants. And when people say, oh, how much did you make last year? Like, are you doing well? And you're like, oh, I think I'm doing well. I think, who knows? I'm working. right? And sometimes working, you're like, what are you even making money while you're doing all this work? Like, and it's always like a parent or somebody who says, so like really, how, it's my dad who says it to me, how are you doing really? Like, I know you're working a lot, but is anything coming through the door? And it's really interesting to divide it all out and look at it, because sometimes we find that we're not making any money. And then you really need to reevaluate and decide if you perhaps create some new revenue sources to bring good money in. So a very, very important step. And then we move on to validation step 6, which is competitive advantage. And we're going to be going in detail in a couple weeks about marketing and how important it is to market your business appropriately and choose the right niches for your business. But it all starts at step 1, which is figuring out what your competitive advantage is. And part of competitive advantage is figuring out who your competitors are, and we'll get to that. But your competitive advantage is something that sets you apart from anyone else, to show to your customers that you clearly offer something that is far superior to anyone else in the market, so that they're running through your door. And it's one of the hardest things to figure out, and one of the hardest things to make sure that you're doing properly and communicating. It's really hard to communicate that you're far superior to everybody else, because everybody's like, why would I believe you? Why should I think that you're better than anyone else? But we'll go into all that to try and figure out how to make people believe what you're saying. But you need to look at that competitive advantage as well, so that you can sustain it. So you can sustain your competitive advantage over the other guys that are in the market. So when you look at your competitive advantage, you can look at price. You can look at the specific niche you're targeting. You can look at the response time that you give compared to other people. I know that in my industry, I serve a specific niche, and I learned what my niche was. I wish I'd been targeting that niche the whole time, but we live and learn. But my niche, for some reason, I work, even though I live in Muskoka, my market is in Toronto, because there aren't many babies up here. And so I found that my niche is people who are in the entertainment industry in Toronto. So they could be cinematographers or editors or actors, or I've even had the Cirque du Soleil was passing me around for a while, which was really awesome. But that came through the same type of community, and so that became my niche. And so in all of my communications, I communicate to that audience, and I have an incredibly fast response time, because people who are, specifically in my industry, people who are pregnant want their answer yesterday. There is no uptime for, waiting a day or anything like that. They want to look for what they're looking for, and they want it now. And as being a pregnant woman in my life, I totally understand that, and I want it yesterday, and anybody who stands in my way, I'm taking them down. And so my response time has been one of the things that has given me my competitive advantage. My price doesn't even matter in my industry, because people ask for ridiculous amounts of money, and we all charge different amounts, and nobody looks at price who's in my niche. But you can think about all sorts of different examples where price might be something that a niche would have to focus on. If we're looking at discount services, or we're looking at even the cost of a loaf of bread. If you were going to start a bakery and you were creating a gluten-free loaf, and you wanted everybody to think it was the most amazing loaf in the whole entire world, some people would say, well then, obviously, all of the other loaves are $3.50. Yours should be $8. Because when you price your beautiful, gorgeous loaf of bread at $8, people think you are awesome, and they give you the appearance that you are far superior to everyone else, and your niche will be like running through the door, because it's moms who think their kids have gluten issues, and you'll just kick butt. And so it's something to, how does that apply to your business? How would it how would you make yourself seem superior to other people? And it's something that obviously will develop over time, but if you have some ideas now that you can extrapolate on and get out there, it's really, really important to start with something. You might try something and everybody's like, we don't even care about that. And so you'll have to completely change what you're thinking. But starting somewhere is always good. And so what I want you to do in your workbook is explain what you think your competitive advantage is and how you plan to keep that competitive advantage at the front and foremost of your customer's mind. And have you, I don't know, I know you can't see the screen right now, but there's a big purple cow. Do you know who Seth Godin is?
Sorry, a big purple cow?
Yeah, there's a big purple cow. Do you know who Seth Godin is?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Seth Godin wrote a book called The Purple Cow, and it's all about how, he was driving along with his kids one day and his wife in France, and his kids were fighting in the back seat, and his wife was sitting, and she was she was asleep, and then all of a sudden there was silence in the car, and he looked up and he looked into the back seat and he realized that what his kids were doing was looking out into the field at a bunch of cows. And then about 30 seconds later, they looked at each other and started fighting and yammering and talking again. And at that moment, he thought, man, if in the middle of the field there'd been a purple cow, how our experience of that moment would have been different. If there had been a purple cow, I would have pulled over to the side of the road. My wife would have woken up and got the camera. She would have been running out trying to get a picture of this cow. The kids would have run into the field, even though we would have been protesting that they were going near cows, but they would have wanted to touch the cow, and it would have been this big, huge event. I wish I could see a purple cow. That would be awesome. But one of the things about competitive advantage is to try and turn into a purple cow, and to try and figure out how you can make yourself a purple cow. And it's a very daunting task. Apple has made themselves a purple cow. There's a whole bunch of companies who've made themselves purple cows. And even if you take a general look at your industry that you're in, you'll notice who the purple cows are, who just seem to have this vibe about them that makes them unique and different from everyone else in the industry. And it's really cool when you look at your competitors to see what it takes to be a purple cow. And then what you can do is look at that and say, I can't replicate completely what they're doing. Well, you could, and it doesn't really matter. Nobody can stop you. But you don't want to replicate it completely, but create your own purple cow. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, it's just hard to do. So, it's not the easiest thing in the world, but it's honestly what can keep you up at night and thinking about what you need to do. It's like, how am I going to be my purple cow? Because it really is something that, once you figure it out and you develop, even if it's just a way that you communicate, that can be your purple cow. It can really, really make a difference to how many people come through your door. So validation step 7, it's a really, really good idea to make a mock offer of whatever you're thinking about and then test your idea. So if you're already in the industry, you have made mock offers because you've already started working in what you're doing. But if it's not working, if things are kind of clunking along and you're not where you want to be, sometimes it's really good to recraft what you're offering or recraft what your product is or the basket of product that you offer, whatever it is, recraft it and give it a shot. Put it out there. You could even go to past clients if you have them and say, what would have made the experience better? What would have just put the icing on the cake and made you think, my gosh, there is no human that is better on earth than you for providing the service? And that can be done through surveys after you're finished. It's really, really good to collect information from your customers so that you can find out what you can do better. The most successful companies in the world are constantly doing surveys of their client base so that they can keep up with the trends and keep up with what people think and constantly shift and change to meet the needs of their client, whether product-based product-based products are being provided or service-based products. And so making a new mock offer of something that you want to give a shot of, like you just want to see if it's going to work. It's a really, really good idea to do that so that you're not spending $800 million on completely changing what you're doing or creating a whole new product line and buying all the inventory but not even having tested it yet. Because you always want to test any ideas that you're moving forward with. And it just saves us a heck of a lot of money in the process. So in summary, in terms of your business model and validating your business idea, we got the opportunity to build the business model, you develop your business concept, figure out your position in the value chain, calculate your customer value, identify your revenue sources and cost drivers, and then you develop your competitive strategy, how you are at an advantage in comparison to your competitors. So those are huge, huge things to look at and calculate, and in that whole process, it gives you a really, really clear picture of how you can move forward and what your business actually looks like, whether it's already in existence or you are just creating it. And it's just part of the building blocks of being able to see your business as a painting on the wall. I always wish that somehow, we could see ourselves from the outside, see ourselves as how everyone else sees us, because it would give us such a clearer image of how we're presenting ourselves, where our flaws are, all of that kind of thing. And so creating all of these models, even though it's a pain in the butt, but doing all these models and plans and charts and things, it's just ways for us to visually see ourselves and look at ourselves in the mirror. And that's why getting feedback from other people on all of these kind of things and asking for help is a really, really good idea, because we often put on our rose-colored glasses, or we put on our super negative glasses, where the glasses that a lot of women have, where you wake up in the morning, look at yourself in the mirror, and you're like, oh my gosh, I look like crap. And it's not fair. We're not fair to ourselves, because nobody else would think we look like crap. Only we think we look like crap. And so, it's important to know what colored glasses we're wearing when we're thinking about our business. So super, super important steps. And then we can move on to actually starting to create the business plan, which is what we're going to move on to now. So Module 5 of our curriculum, which you're going to be getting from me to read, is where we start crafting our one-page business plan. And the goal of the business plan is to create a simple and effective way that we can look at our business, and if we need to, we can change course. The reason that businesses, that banks and funders and all of those guys ask for these ridiculous long business plans isn't so that they can look at your demographics and decide if it's a good market or not. They're not trying to figure that out at all. What they want to know is that you've thought about what you're going to do, and that it makes sense to you, and that even after you've done all this research and looked at it, you still think that the business makes sense. And hopefully they're assuming that along the way somebody will have told you that it's completely insane what you're trying to do. I don't know if Dragon's Den is something that is, you've ever watched before, but there's so many wackadoodles that go on to Dragon's Den, right? And it's funny because there's you go on and you're screaming at the TV and you're like, oh my gosh, this is the best idea. I hope somebody invests in it. Then there's other people who come out with, the weirdest stuff, like the ways to clean your toilet seat and, the odd little contraptions to move you around and just absolutely insane things. And obviously it's provided for entertainment purposes, but the reason they're on Dragon's Den is because they could not set foot into a bank and get any money. They're not even going to get $2,500 from a bank to do the plans that they're trying to do. I was watching It was just a couple weeks ago, and I was at a hotel, so it was an American station, and there was this man on a show. It was an American show like Dragon's Den, and it wasn't Shark Tank. It was this other thing where there was this man who'd created a machine that both mowed and watered your lawn, and he'd spent almost $1 million of his personal money on it. He'd quit his really, really good job. He had a wife, he had kids, and this thing looked like a remote control car that was like made by a 2-year-old. And it's just like, oh my gosh, I wish I could have sat down with this guy and made him make a business model and a business plan before he'd started into this whole thing. Because even though it might be a great idea, it made him seem like a crazy person. And I know that all inventors and people like that, sometimes they seem like crazy people, and it's the best thing in the whole entire world. Like Rombos. Like, yeah, I wouldn't have thought that a little Rombo vacuum would be a good thing. But hey, some guy made it, and it was brilliant, right? Or female. I don't even know who made it. But, some things are crazy. And so hopefully the purpose of doing all this is just to make sure that you know that your business idea is as structurally sound as physically possible, so that people aren't going to look at you and think that your business idea is just right out there. And so how we do this is we need a plan that's easy to fill out, easy to execute, easy to update and change when we want to change our course with different things, and it should be short, clear, and concise about your course of action. The short, clear, and concise is one of the most important things. It's not the opportunity to write all sorts of flowery language. Bullet points are awesome, and bullet points are quick ways to get across to people that, what your idea is, what you're trying to do, and it's almost more of a reminder of what you're doing than an actual huge, novel about it. So we're going to build a business plan with 10 core fundamentals in mind, and we're going to start working on those 10 core fundamentals, and that's how we're going to create the plan. So let's see. Question number 1 in terms of the 10 core fundamentals is there an opportunity? If you want to keep this to about 1 sentence, it needs to be clear and convincing, but what is the opportunity in your industry for your product? I know that most things, there's an industry for it. There's a need. There's an opportunity. And what you want to create is a statement that convinces people that the opportunity in your industry is there. And they want to jump out of their seat and immediately invest themselves in your opportunity. It's a hard thing to think about. It's a hard thing to create, because what really is the opportunity? That's sometimes hard to determine. But overall, it's something that should come fairly easily, because I don't think that you would have started the business if you didn't believe that there was an opportunity. We all think that there's an opportunity for our services, right? But there really, there normally really is. So creating your opportunity statement is the number 1 thing. Question number 2 is, what is your solution to your client's problems? What is your solution to the industry's problems in general, if it can't be client specific? So you want this solution to be 1 or 2 sentences at maximum. It should be your top priority in terms of what you're offering your clients right now. And if you can nail it down to 1 sentence about what your actual solution is, then you can go into a little more detail about how you plan to solve the problem for your customer, and you can try and explain that in about 3 to 4 sentences. So I'm going to send you some examples of solution statements and actual, these kind of business plans, so that you can hear what I'm talking about. But you want to offer the solution to the problem and then explain how you're going to solve that problem right after that in about 3 or 4 sentences. You can think of these sections like book headlines. and how they're solving the problems for people. The first part is like super, super eye-catching with a very clear statement on what the book's about. And then the actual book text talks in more detail about what the actual bread and butter is in the story is. You can, like the back of a book is a really good example of the explanation of that kind of thing. And the main concept behind this is that I don't know if you've heard the Pain Island, the Pleasure Island whole concept about clients, but your clients and customers are currently on Pain Island. That is where they live. It's terrible. They have a huge set of problems, and it's a total nightmare. Your product offers them Pleasure Island, and you just happen to be the boat that they're going to drive from Pain Island to Pleasure Island on. And so what you want to explain to everyone, just hold on a second. Oh, I didn't turn on my power bar, so my computer was going to die. That always happens. So what ends up happening is you want to say to people, I know you're on Pain Island. I know you don't know what you're doing. I know that this is terrible for you and very hard. I understand what Pain Island is like. I am going to take you to Pleasure Island. This is what Pleasure Island is like. All of the problems that you have on Pain Island are going to be solved on my Pleasure Island. I will be able to take you there. You'll be comfortable. You'll be happy, and everything will be perfect. When you explain this journey from Pain Island to Pleasure Island, you don't talk about your boat. You don't talk about that it's made of wood and that you don't talk about the how, the nitty-gritty bananas of it. You don't want it, they don't need to know what they're going to eat on the boat. They don't need to know how deep the water is. They don't know how long, they don't need to know how long the process is going to take. They don't need to know any of that. They just need to know what Pleasure Island is like. It's like commercials from the different countries when they're trying to get people to come. And it's like, come to Cuba and you're seeing Pleasure Island and it's all awesome because we're in Pain Island here, right? They're not talking about take Air Canada flight 532 to Cuba. It's going to take you exactly this long to get here and pack this and do that. All you're seeing is people dancing on the beach and eating great food and having a fun time, and everything's pristine and clean. And so in those commercials, they are appealing to us by showing us our Pleasure Island. And when we talk about Cuba, it's literally a Pleasure Island. But you want to craft and create an image of your product through this description that's showing you as a Pleasure Island, so that people are like, yeah, I want to go there. And that's all they can think. And that your business is the boat to get on to go to Pleasure Island. And really, when you apply the whole Pain Island and Pleasure Island to absolutely everything that you do in your business, and make sure that everything you're offering people is just the most Pleasure Island-filled thing as possible, you'll always have happy clients. It's when you start mixing in the hows and the how long it's going to take. People don't like hearing things like that. It stresses them out. And so, you'll hold their hand through everything, and you'll make everything easier for them. And so saying stuff like, don't worry about how long it's going to take. I'm going to be with you every step of the way. And you're going to have the most wonderful experience ever. Instead of saying, well, actually, it's going to take us about 5 hours, and it's going to be, a whole bunch of questions, and you're going to feel like your head's going to explode, and all these terrible things. That's the boat. But you want to be focusing on the Pleasure Island. And then after we do that, we move on to question 3, which is, who is your target customer? This is the most important thing. I mean, there's lots of important things, but this is one of the big ones that you want to focus on for your business. It's very, very easy for us to think that, well, I sell bread. Everybody loves bread. And so I sell to everybody. My target customer is the world. And where that, on one side, that's very, very, that's a grand thought. And yes, everybody might like bread, but the likelihood of everybody wanting to eat your bread is very, very low. It's unless you're Wonder, but that's just because they were the first ones out. Now they've been terribly, they're being destroyed because it's typewriter cleaner. But and so you need to figure out who your target customer is. And so after you see the pain that your customer's in and you evaluate what their problems are, which is like what we did before with the work that we did last time, you see this pain and you figured out what the solution will be to solve that problem. Then you need to figure out who your target market is. It's like, okay, I see the problem. I see how I'll solve it. Now, who am I going to market to? And honestly, the better understanding you have of this part of your business, the more likely you will be to impress the potential people. The more likely you'll be to impress potential partners or investors or anyone who's looking for more information about your business, even suppliers. If you are looking at creating awesome relationships with suppliers so that they'll always have their stuff, if you find out you need something at the last minute, you call them and they'll be like, of course, I'll have it for you like in 2 seconds because we think you're awesome and we see that you're focused and we know what you're doing. It just makes everything better. So you want to really focus on who your target market is so that people can understand what you're doing. And a lot of people, unfortunately, kind of skip this problem. So as we're trying to figure out what your target market is, the first thing to look at is what problem you solve. So you define your target market for the specific problem that you're trying to solve, which is kind of a reverse. You'd think of your target market and what problems they have, but you could actually look at what problems are there, and then how do I solve them. For me, one of my markets that were very, very good is that a problem that I solved was people who didn't have their parents in Canada, and that is such a common thing for our world right now, and especially in the GTA. And so for women specifically who didn't have their parents anywhere close by, that was a problem that I could solve because I always marketed myself as, family that you're paying for that have no issues. And yeah, and people loved that because it's like, I'm the sister that doesn't care about what your issues are, and I'm not going to bring up stuff about this and that and the other thing, right? And at first I was like, that can be something that I can really sell myself to. So, that's a problem, people who have no family. So that is my target market, women who don't have family here. And it just kind of evolves naturally that way. And it's a good idea to do that, figure out who's suffering the most from the problem, and that's how you can identify and know that you can solve that customer's problem. Number two, you move through and you want to paint a picture of that customer. So you start off with a list of all the different kind of customers that you could solve their problems. And then you can start building the actual pictures of those customers. So you can group them by location. You can group them by net worth, which is super important to focus on. What postal codes they live in, what neighborhoods they live in. You can group them by market sector. You can, if they're, if they are manufacturers or recruitment people or whoever they are, whatever these people are, whatever industry they actually work in and are employed in, you focus on those markets and you start creating the image and the picture of these people. So then once you've got where they're working, you say, are they married? Are they male? Are they female? Do they play golf? What do they do with their spare time? Do they love yoga? Do they go away with their families to their cottage every year, or have they never left Canada? Or who are the people that I'm appealing to? And the more you can create these different humans that you would be solving the problems for, the more you'll be able to talk directly to them. And it's a lot. I consider myself like I'm a people person. Normally within the first, couple minutes of talking to somebody, I make a couple assumptions, know where they're at, and I'm quite comfortable going forward and talking to them. But the only reason that I'm like that is because I've done a lot of evaluation on what these people would want and what these people need. It's funny, people make fun of me all the time because if we meet somebody new, if I meet somebody in a work setting or even in a personal setting and I'm with a group of friends afterwards and I'm like, wow, that person isn't what I expected them to be. I wonder what their background is. I wonder what they do in their spare time. I wonder why they are the way they are, because I want to connect. I want to be able to socialize or solve their problems or be useful to them in a certain way. And the only way that I can do that is to know that picture of them. And I really do personally depend on the pictures that I create of people so that therefore I can meet their needs. And in socializing, I don't know if a lot of people actually think about it in terms of meeting the needs of the people that we're interacting with, but it is very important. We meet the needs of our friends. They come to us. We talk to them. You share. You're there for them. It is just a needs-based thing. We're all meeting each other's needs, whether it's just for conversation or somebody to watch TV with. And it's the same with your customers. And the more that you can focus on that, the more your customers will feel like you're really communicating with them. If we look at Apple, they have created and painted a picture of the customers that want to use their product. And you either fit that mold or you don't. They're not saying an Apple product is good for everyone. They're saying an Apple product is for the most brilliant people on the face of the planet, the hipsters, or people who just know good quality. If you think about the that commercial that was on TV, the PC versus Mac commercials, where there's the really cool style. Well, he's not really. He's a funny guy, but the styling calm guy, and then the total computer nerd. And that was the comparisons between the two people that Apple wasn't targeting at all, and then Apple was targeting. And it's funny because I grew up in Waterloo, and so I am a BlackBerry girl. I always have been, and Apple kind of has me. Yeah, exactly. Do you have a BlackBerry too? Yeah, totally. And I'm crazy, but I'm almost like I don't want to go Apple because I feel like I'm cheating somehow on my BlackBerry. And so those commercials for me worked perfectly because I was like, you know what? I'm going to totally be on the side of the computer geek, and I'm fighting the power, and I'm not going to give in, and that's just me. But I also am friends with people who line up for 5 hours before the actual the phone comes out, and I totally different world, and and that's exactly who they're speaking to, which is just great marketing strategy on their part. And so if we can paint these specific pictures of our customers, it just is all the better. And then number 3 in this whole question is who will gain from the value in your offer. So who will these problems be most troublesome to? Like when they have problems, who's actually really looking to solve it? Because it's very easy. In my industry, for example, I believe that every single woman in the whole world should have a doula. And, that's just, I think that and I believe in it fully. But I know that a lot of women who believe that they should have a doula too won't actually decide to get one because they just don't need one. They determine that it's not something that they need. But then there's these other women who really, really decide that they need it. And the moment that they get pregnant, they pee on a stick and call a doula. And that's instantly what they do, right? And so I need to find those people, though, because their problem is most troublesome to them. And that is your easiest market that you can find. And so whether that's somebody who's too busy to figure things out for themselves or, once again, for me, people who don't have family to help them along the way, those are the people that I'm looking for. These are the people that I'm seeking and should be seeking out. If you can demonstrate to the market that the cost of not having the problem is greater than the cost of dealing with it, then your case becomes compelling. For me, if I can prove that if they don't have a doula, they will regret it until the end of the universe. And I can prove that to them. That is my job because that's what I want people to think. And not only do I believe it, which also helps because it makes me more passionate about what I'm offering, but the cost is greater to them of them not using my service. If we can make that case clear, then everything does become much more compelling. And the more emotional we can make that, the better. You want to tie into all of the different emotions that people use. Just like the Apple commercial. You're going to be a total and complete geek loser if you don't use my product. And that, who wants to be a geek loser except for obviously just, a small group of us. Okay, and then you need to think about your actual larger market. And the tough part these days is that we're not prisoners anymore to television. So it's and convenient ways of advertising and all of that kind of stuff. And everybody is really, really unique in the way that they consume media, in the way they consume life in general. And websites are awesome ways to deliver personalized products and services and cutting out all the distribution challenges that exist. Do you find that you use, do you have a website that people use a lot or not?
A website that people, for me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just going through police, and I thought they were doing a right check, which is
nice.
I was thinking one morning. It's just rifle officer. They do.
Yeah, because I find that nowadays, if people can't somehow communicate and interact with people on the internet, it's like your product doesn't even exist.
I would say all of my inquiries come through my website. If they're not, even if they're word of mouth or referral, they still come through the website.
Exactly. And that is so common. I mean, you've got people who are over the age of probably maybe 50 who don't work that way, but now it's all online, and people, that's because it's funny, it's just such a much more informal way of making an initial contact, whereas in the past we had no choice. We had to just instantly pick up the phone and make that phone call. Now it's very, very different. And so in terms of a niche, it's really important to appeal to a niche if this is your market, unless you're offering senior services, which would be different. You'd be wanting to call them and offer a 1-800 number. But as long as you're dealing with a niche of anybody basically 45 and under, you're wanting to have your personalized products and everything that's going on online so that inquiries and as much information as possible can be sourced out that way. And that's very different from even 15 years ago. The market back then, tech savvy wasn't one of the things that we needed to be looking for, and it wasn't a severe thing that you had to implement for your business, or else you would be now you're nowhere. I mean, who picks up a phone book anymore? It's funny, I assumed that I lived in the GTA for a long time, and I thought, moving to a smaller town, I might find that phone books are much more in use. But I find even up here that has become the phone book, or the internet, 411.ca, or even just looking on Google to find something. People just don't. It's like, oh, I'm going to look at my phone book. I don't even know where my phone book is. I don't think I've used it in years, And it's funny because I was actually just recently, I wanted to get a little piece of 20-foot fence put onto my backyard because it's the only part of my backyard that isn't fenced, and I've got 2 little dogs that think they're big dogs and want to run out into the whole neighborhood. And so I was looking to try and get a fence put in, and I asked around word of mouth, and I said, who's the best person for a fence in, to put a fence in, and everybody told me that it was this one guy. And so I was like, great. And I went online, and I found his little phone number kind of thing, but it was a phone number. And I was like, well, I'm at work. I can't call him to ask about a fence. How am I going to contact him? If he had an email address, I would have contacted him immediately and he could have got my job. But he didn't. And so instantly I went and looked for somebody else to do a fence, somebody who I could email, which seems terrible because he wasn't even the one that I got the word of mouth for. But I just needed a fence. And I didn't have time to be calling him and him calling me back and all of that rigmarole. I just didn't have time for it. And so in terms of a niche, he's not looking to me to be his customer. He's looking at people who are, 55 and older, because I know I'm not the only one who doesn't use a phone book and, doesn't have that, I don't want to call him. I really don't want to talk to him until he shows up at my house, which is terrible, but it's just the truth. And so looking at who your niche is like, it's a super important thing. And so if you can also, when you're looking at your niche that for your business, you can also decide who you want to work with. Like, it isn't something that has to be controlled by the market. You can actually put it out there. So if you want to work with people of a high net worth who are women who golf, or there's actually a massage therapist that I worked with not too long ago, and the only people that she wanted to work with were runners. Female runners, because she was a female who was a runner, and she knew all about running injury and different things that happen to your body if you ran, and so that's the only people that she wanted to service. Obviously, if anybody else came through her door, she would take them, but all of her advertising, all of her focus on her business and her business plan was all based on women runners. And then what she decided, and she realized, which was that she could go out to running clubs and places that sell athletic wear for runners, and that's who she could help spread her word and become her brand ambassador, because, she knew that they would be able to help her get out to the absolutely specific market that she had. And it's really great because she picked them and she loved them and she so enjoys working with them. And so while there's, she could be literally just an RMT that serves everybody, she had that little special twist, her niche was awesome, and that twist was really, really super focused on female runners, and she's doing really, really well because now everybody knows that that's what her expertise is and that's what she should be doing, and it's just awesome. And I'm so happy that she was able to find that and choose it for herself. The other thing that you can do is only work in specific geographical locations. That's another big one too. Like, if you want to make a catchment area and you don't go outside of that catchment area, that's something else that's very important. In my industry, for example, I will charge huge premiums to people who are outside of certain areas because I know that it's going to take away from other people that I could be helping, or other clients that I could be having, 2-to-1 kind of thing. I could be seeing 2 clients in Toronto rather than driving all the way out to Milton, even though it's quite close, but with Toronto and the traffic, it's just not going to be as good. And also, too, you can choose to focus on industry. So if you, like when I was working with Cirque du Soleil, for example, and I was being passed around by all of the people who were home from the Cirque because they were between big shows, I marketed specifically to them. I chose them as a niche, and that's how I moved forth. That was just one of the niches. You can focus on different niches, but it was a specific niche, and I dreamed it. I worked with it until they all moved to Japan or wherever the heck they were going for their shows, because it was a market and I wanted to benefit from every single penny that I could get out of it. And, it was exciting. It was fun. I learned a lot about the circus, which I never knew anything before in my whole entire life. And, it was awesome. I was so excited to go and meet everybody to see what they looked like. And it's like, what's this? What like stick is going to be sticking through this person's head? Like, all sorts of exciting stuff happened. It was so awesome. You should totally do some Cirque weddings. That should be like one of the things that you focus on.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
So I feel like childbirth would be easier in their flexible state.
Exactly, 100%. And too, quite honestly, childbirth in general, often for athletes, is much easier because they're already used to, even people who run, because people who are used to dealing with mind over matter situations, because that's what it is, right? Birth is all mind over matter. We're all meant, like, we're supposed to birth babies, and so, we're not going to die. And so it's all about, it's 95% mental and 5% physical. And so the Cirque people they just shot their kids out. It was quite brilliant.
I love it.
Yeah, pretty darn amazing. All right. The other thing, too, that you can do when you're thinking about your market is you can look if you've got something that's pre-existing, is that you can look internally at your company. If you have more than one person that you're working with, or even people who are sourcing things, you can look at what kind of areas of expertise you already have, like true expertise. Expertises can come from hobbies. Like, they don't have to come from things that you're even trained in. It can be interest or hobby based. And if you have certain experience or expertise in certain parts of your industry, then perhaps that's something that you can focus on because you know about it, right? And if you have unique knowledge of a specific geographic area, then that's what you focus on, because that's it's a funnel to bring your ideas down. It's not that you couldn't do something in another geographic area, but that geography is so important. And are you getting, do you, like I was saying with the Cirque, for some reason I was attracting people from there. I didn't even know that that's something I could do. But when you're looking at the clients that you already have, are you attracting similar people? And is that something that you could leverage and use as you move forward? And all of those, paying attention to all of those things can help you create an attractive offering, that you can then test and see if it actually works in that market, because, it makes sense. And you'll find that when you do something you like, when you work with the people that you like, and you do something that you know about, like if you actually have expertise and you like the people and you like the area, you're going to love your job. And that passion will come through, which will lead to more and more work coming your way. The other thing, too, is you need to look around and you need to see what else is available in the market. You need to figure out why you're uniquely positioned and placed to solve the problem. You need to make sure that any questions that are being asked in the industry, you are answering. And if you can't answer them, if people are asking questions that are in your target market or niche and you don't have those answers, move on to another market. Just like I was saying, like, you don't want to do something you don't know anything about, unless it's a simple answer that you can find, because it's just not the right people to be targeting. And then the next big question that we're going to be looking at is, who's your competition? After thinking about this and starting to ask questions about what's around you, who is your competition? And when I say who is your competition, you need to name names. You need to have a list of all of your competitors written down. And it's really, really important to start monitoring that competition as often as you possibly can. So you want to be looking for people who are businesses that are offering similar products or services to what you're offering or looking to offer. You want to find out how long they've been around. You want to know if they have a loyal customer base. You need to know if you're competing for the same customers, if they are serving the same niche that you are, if their product or service is better than what you're offering, while at the same price point that you're offering. That's really a super, super key question to find out. You want to, if you hear word of mouth of anybody else, you also want to be investigating and figuring out who these people are. And you need to answer all of these questions for yourself. And so it's a good idea to probably look at the next three, not the next, but the top 3 to 5 competitors that you have, because that gives you, I would say even more than that, probably 10 if you can find them, because it gives you a really, really good idea of what kind of vibe people are looking for and what they're offering. It's also a good idea, you can also go undercover, and if they do have email addresses, and if you have any questions about any of that kind of stuff, you can interview them and pretend that you're somebody else. You go onto Google, create a new Google account under a pseudonym, and then you email them and find out the information that you're looking for. The best way to find out information is to ask for it. And people, if you walk in and you say, "Hi, I'm your direct competitor and I want to know all this information," they're obviously not going to give it to you. So that's why there were, you can see like the undercover people taking pictures of products inside stores and, stores trying to make that not happen. But the reason that happens is because that's one of the keys to figuring out what your competitor's doing. It's funny. I was actually just at a party this weekend, and one of the women that I was sitting with, she worked years ago when she was in her late teens and early 20s. She worked for Toys R Us, and she was talking about how back then there was this, what toy was it? I can't remember what. Oh, it was a Teletubby, and she was saying that back then Teletubbies were like super, super popular, kind of like Cabbage Patch Dolls back in the 80s. And what ended up happening was, and they had to put a sign on the door and get security, but the employees from Walmart were coming into Toys R Us and buying all the Teletubbies so that they could then steal them from not steal them, but they would pay for them and take them to Walmart and sell them. And she was saying that this was like absolutely crazy, and it was this big like episode, but it was happening because Walmart wasn't given the distribution rights to the product. And that was one of the main things that people were looking for. That was the competitive advantage in terms of toys that year. And so Walmart, being Walmart, figured out an underground way to go and figure out a way to keep the people coming to the store, because I don't know if anybody's ever tried to buy a toy for a kid at Christmas that they so wanted. If you can't get that toy, life will be over. Like Santa won't be coming.
Yeah.
and so they figured out how to meet that market, so that when the parent came in and said, "Do you have Teletubbies?" Walmart could say, "Yeah," and then they'd buy 5 more things too. Right? Instead of saying, no, actually Toys R Us has it, and then they walk out disappointed and buy all the toys at Toys R Us. And so that's like an extreme example, and it just happened to come up at a party this weekend, because we're preparing for Christmas, which is always such a nightmare. And so like, what are the Teletubbies this year? And that's the kind of stuff that you need to figure out so that you can be the Walmart. In order to grab the competition. You want to get the people walking through your door. You want to get the people emailing you and asking you for help, to the point where you need to hire 20 people to meet the needs of what they're asking you to do. That's what the goal is, right?
That was amazing. Annie, I'm at the venue now. Is it possible to? I'm just trying to think how I can get.
You know what? I'm on my last slide.
Oh, okay.
So you know what? The next slide is just homework, and so I'll send you that list.
Okay, I really sorry.
Oh no!
This week is insane, but
I'm just so glad.
I know it's amazing, and well, I'll email you after. But I'll do that stuff tonight.
That's perfect.
I was presented with this opportunity, and I'm trying to get my competitive advantage with meeting planners, because that's who I'm with this week.
That's
and they
awesome.
all do weddings.
Yeah.
So if they are making the effort to tour Muskoka for meetings, and they most definitely get inquiries for weddings.
Exactly.
Away because they don't like them, so now they have one wedding planner on the bus with them.
Yay!
So, but yay! Hopefully it'll work. But I want to stay on the phone with you, because what you're saying, I wish I met you 5 years ago.
I know. So, well, you know me now, and it's probably the best time.
Change. Oh yes, it is. I'm ready.
Perfect.
All right.
I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much, Annie. I appreciate it. Have a good morning.
Okay, you too.
Okay, bye.
Bye. All right, so for everyone else, I want you to make sure that you spend some time between now and Wednesday jotting down the top 5 competitors that you have, preferably up to 10, because you're going to need that information for the next stuff that we're going to be dealing with in the next session on Wednesday. And in terms of homework for Wednesday, I want you to complete your business model canvas. I want to have that sitting beside you when you're on the call with me. I want you to start your one-page business plan. You can start to develop that over the next couple of weeks, and that's no problem. Really, really start thinking about who your competition is and complete that list. I want you to read the modules that I send you in the mail. And then other than that, I just want you to have a nice time. It's kind of getting chilly out, so wear warm sweaters and keep yourself warm and drink warm beverages. And I hope you have a great week until Wednesday. Until then, I'll see you then. Okay, bye.